Two of the biggest companies on Earth raised their prices on the exact same afternoon, and they both pointed at the exact same culprit. Apple raised the MacBook and iPad. Microsoft raised the Xbox by up to $150. Sony already hit the PlayStation earlier this year. And not one of them blamed inflation. Not one of them blamed tariffs. They all blamed a single fingernail-sized component you have probably never once thought about: a memory chip. Here's the part that should stop you cold. The chips driving these price hikes are not exotic or new. Some of them are built on a memory standard that's more than a decade old. And right now, that older memory costs as much as, or more than, the brand new chip sitting next to it on the shelf. Old tech is outselling new tech. The cheap thing became the expensive thing overnight. So how does a commodity nobody cared about quietly become the most contested resource in the entire technology industry? And why is almost nobody connecting the dots on what it means for your wallet specifically? That signal is what this video is about. And by the end, you will know the one position the crowd has completely missed. The place where the real money is being made while everyone else stares at a price tag. Stay until the payoff. It is worth it. First, kill the assumption you are probably making right now. This is not a repeat of 2021. The shortage you remember from the pandemic was a traffic jam. Factories shut down, ships stalled, and eventually the jam cleared. This is structurally different. Nothing is broken. The factories are running. The ships are moving. The difference is that the three companies controlling more than 90% of the world's memory supply, Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron, made a deliberate business decision. They looked at who was willing to pay the most for their output, and they quietly pivoted their production lines away from your laptop and toward artificial intelligence data centers. This is not a shortage caused by an accident. It is a shortage caused by a choice. And because that choice is driven by the most powerful financial force in technology right now, it does not resolve next quarter. The math says it runs for years. Here is how I'm breaking this down. First, the economics of why the pivot happened and who it already hurt. Then the hidden ripple that goes far beyond consumer gadgets. And finally, the single counterintuitive position that tells you exactly who wins. Here is why the choice was so easy to make. Training a large AI model requires a specialized premium kind of memory called high bandwidth memory, or HBM. HBM is effectively a money printer. Every gigabyte of it consumes roughly 3 times the factory floor space of a standard memory chip, and it sells at a steep premium over conventional DRAM. So when an AI hyperscaler shows up with a 9-figure purchase order, the arithmetic is brutal and simple. Why manufacture cheap commodity memory for a $50 gadget when you can manufacture premium HBM for a data center that will pay multiples for the same wafer output? The answer, for a publicly traded company with shareholders, is that you do not. You take the money. Data centers, which consumed roughly 1/3 of global memory supply a few years ago, are on track to absorb as much as 70% of total output this year alone. The AI infrastructure build-out behind that demand is pouring close to $600 billion into new data centers in 2026. A wall of capital that Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron simply cannot afford to ignore. The cushion that everyone took for granted is gone. Industry inventory that sat at around 31 weeks of supply in 2023 has collapsed to approximately 8 weeks today. 8 weeks. That is not a buffer. That is a cliff edge. The prices tell the whole story. DRAM, the main working memory inside every device you own, is up roughly 170% over the past year. NAND flash, the storage that holds your photos and files, has climbed even harder in some grades. That older DDR4 memory everyone wrote off as a bargain bin product, in many cases it has doubled or tripled. A single memory kit that sold for around $70 last fall now lists above $250 at major retailers. Same chips, same factory process, nearly 4 times the price. A commodity repriced like a luxury good because the people with the deepest pockets decided they wanted it. Apple spent months quietly absorbing these input costs to shield its customers, and then it cracked, stating publicly that, quote, "We have never seen a component price increase this much, this quickly." Microsoft was blunter. Console memory costs have already jumped more than 2.5 times, and the company expects them to double again before 2027. That is why the Xbox has taken 3 price increases in under 2 years. And it hits hardest at the bottom of the market. Because memory is a larger percentage of a budget device's total bill of materials, the sub-$500 laptop, the one students and families depend on, is now at genuine risk of becoming financially impossible to build within 2 years. But here's the thing, almost every headline is missing. Stop thinking about gadgets for a second. The same memory chips are embedded in the machines that run the internet itself. The routers, gateways, and cable modems that carry broadband into tens of millions of homes. They all depend on this exact commodity DRAM. As the price climbs, the cost of building and maintaining the physical network underneath everything climbs with it. At one major networking hardware manufacturer, memory went from a rounding error in the total build cost to more than 1/3 of it inside a single fiscal year. Every router that gets more expensive to produce is a cost that eventually flows downhill, and the people at the bottom of that hill are paying monthly broadband bills. This is not abstract. It is infrastructure pricing pressure that takes time to flow through to the bills people actually pay. which means a lot of what lands later is already baked in by the allocation decisions being made today. It reaches the road, too. Honda alone cut approximately 110,000 vehicles from its North American production schedule because of chip supply constraints, and executives across the automotive sector are now warning that the supply of automotive-grade memory could fall below 50% of industry demand before the end of this year. Automotive memory is a different specification from consumer memory. It requires longer operational lifespans and tighter temperature tolerances, but it competes for the same underlying wafer capacity. When Samsung and SK Hynix redirect that capacity toward Nvidia's H100 and B200 server orders, the car industry gets starved. Hospital imaging equipment, industrial control systems, and the Chromebooks in your kid's classroom all sit in the same allocation queue, behind the data centers with the bigger checks. This is not a tech shelf problem. It is an everything problem, and it is already running. And here is the collision nobody has priced in yet. Grand Theft Auto 6 launches this November. It is the most anticipated title in over a decade, and it will drive a wave of console hardware demand that hits retail at exactly the moment when memory supply is at its tightest in years. Microsoft is already warning about constrained Xbox hardware availability through the holiday season. If you have ever wanted a textbook example of catastrophic timing, this is it. Peak consumer demand slamming into minimum supply. Scalpers ran the PS5 up to over $1,000 in 2021 when the supply chain was merely disrupted. The structural conditions today are tighter. So step back and ask the only question that actually matters here. If everyone is losing, the gadget makers, the automakers, the broadband subscribers, then who is winning? Follow the money, because this is where the crowd is looking the wrong way entirely. While device companies get analyst downgrades and report shrinking margins, the memory manufacturers are having the best run of their corporate lives. For the first time since 1992, more than 3 decades, SK Hynix passed Samsung as the world's largest memory supplier by revenue. Let that land. A company that spent 3 decades in second place just took the top spot because it bet early and aggressively on HBM for AI customers, Nvidia chief among them. SK Hynix became the leading supplier of the high-bandwidth memory that gets stacked alongside those AI chips. And its operating margins are now approaching levels that rival TSMC, which builds the most sophisticated chips on Earth. The boring commodity became the crown jewel of the semiconductor industry. That is the whole signal in one sentence. When something everyone ignored suddenly becomes scarce, the scarcity itself becomes the most valuable position in the entire supply chain. The people who understood memory as a choke point, not a cheap input, are the ones collecting the premium today. And because you cannot build a memory fab overnight, the timeline for relief is not what the headlines suggest. A new DRAM facility costs between $15 billion and $20 billion to construct and takes 3 to 4 years from groundbreaking to meaningful production output. Micron has announced expansions in Idaho and New York. Samsung is building in Texas. SK Hynix is adding capacity in Indiana. None of it delivers at scale before 2027. And some of the most critical HBM capacity does not come online until 2028 or 2029. The crowd keeps hoping for a correction in the next 2 quarters. The schedule does not support that hope. So here is where the crowd is, and here is where you are now. The crowd is staring at the price tag. The Xbox that costs $150 more. The MacBook that suddenly jumped. The laptop that priced a family out of back-to-school shopping. But a price tag is just an echo. The real decision was made months ago, quietly, inside a wafer fabrication plant in Incheon, South Korea, when SK Hynix chose which customer's order got priority. By the time anyone feels it at the register, the signal is already old news to the people who matter. The headline is always late. The real story was written in a fab long before it hit the shelf, and the next signal is already forming right now in the allocation data for 2027. If you want to know exactly which companies this shortage is quietly minting, and which ones are about to get crushed under the weight of it, that is the next breakdown. The winners list is shorter than you think, and one name on it will genuinely surprise you. Watch that one next.